Hi and welcome to CLLI Marketing. Today we're going to be talking about how to create an effective safe island for each equipment setup in your home using a CLLI blinding isolator. In the previous segment, we've already discussed the differences between a CLLI blinding isolator and a common surge protection device or an arrestor that you can find in today's market. And having understood what a CLLI safe island concept is, let's take a look and see how we create a safe island for each equipment setup in your home. Now we go through a three-step process. The first step is to identify the equipment that you want to protect, as well as to identify the external connections going in and coming out of that equipment setup. The second step is to unify the equipment within that setup into a single system. And the third step is to use the correct lightning isolator and to ensure the correct lightning isolator installation. Now we're going to take a simple example, in this case a 4-in-1 satellite TV example, or Astro, and we'll go through the steps individually. Okay? Now, to identify the equipment within an Astro setup, let's take a look at the left-hand side of the segment of the board. You would see an Astro decoder, an LCD TV or a plasma TV, a DVD player, and a hi-fi player. Once you've identified the equipment within the setup, we draw an imaginary boundary to signify the island, and then we're going to identify the external connections coming in or going out of this equipment setup. In this particular case, you would have a satellite dish, which would have a cable coming into your Astro decoder, first external connection. You would have your terrestrial TV antenna as a second external connection. You would have the telco line for pay-per-view services coming into your Astro decoder as a third external connection. And of course, you would have power supply for your Astro decoder. Now, the plasma TV or LCD TV, DVD and hi-fi, you would only have power supply as an external connection. Now, once you've identified the equipment you want to protect as well as the external connection, let's take a look and see how you unify the equipment in step 2. Now let's draw your attention to the right-hand side of the board. You can see here that we already have the external connections. Now how do you unify the equipment within your setup into a single system? This is the recommended lightning isolator, also known as the SFTV9622FC. To unify your equipment here into a single system, all these external connections need to go through to the isolator first. So let's take a look. 3-pin plug of the isolator plugs into the power supply or the electrical wall outlet. The terrestrial antenna coming in plugs into the isolator. The telco line for pay-per-view services plugs into the isolator. And the satellite TV cable plugs into the isolator. Now let's take a look and see how we ensure that the connection is completely unified, okay? Now once all these connections go through to the isolator, the output to your equipment becomes safe, okay? So let's take a look again. The power supply from the isolator into the wall outlet is here. The telco line goes into your decoder. Terrestrial TV antenna goes into your decoder. And the satellite dish cable goes into your decoder, Astro decoder. Okay? So all the external connections go through to the isolator first before it goes into your equipment. And this is how the unification is done. So now your equipment is unified into a single system. Okay? At the same time, take note of the installation. To ensure correct installation, you would notice that we use a power strip or a power bar here for all your equipment setup. It is plugged right through into the isolator, and the isolator then draws power supply from one wall outlet. Okay, and then all the other external connections again goes through the isolator first before it is then connected into your equipment. Now, this here is the physical model of the SFTV9622FC. So I'm just going to quickly go through the installation process to ensure that the installation is correct. So for the 3-pin plug connected to the isolator, make sure it plugs into a single wall outlet, as can be seen here. Okay, and then the terrestrial antenna coming in is plugged into the isolator. Okay, any one of the holes will do, it doesn't matter. Okay, and then we will give you the cable for connecting the isolator back to your decoder. Okay? Just simply plug and play. The next external connection, which is your telco line for pay-per-view services, it goes into here, the isolator first. Now in this particular case, you need to observe the polarity. If it says in and out, make sure that in is coming in from the external connection and out is going into your equipment. Okay, so in this case, the telco comes in here. We give you a connector again, connect it from the isolator, the other end, into your decoder. All right. And the next external connection from the Astro cable dish, it goes into the isolator here. Again, in this case, any side will do. Then we'll give you a connector again, connect it to the isolator and the other end into your Astro decoder. Okay, and in this particular case, you will then connect the 3-pin socket here to a power strip, which supplies power to all the equipment that you can see in an Astro setup. So this is how you create an effective safe island using, for an example, an SFTV 9622FC for a 4-in-1 satellite TV setup or Astro. So thank you for your time and stay tuned for the next segment.